just watched what happened up at North Wilkesboro.
Mhm.
We've watched what's been going on at Darlington for the last 3, 4 years. It seems like vintage is cool again. I know when I took history class, they said history repeats itself. In your mind, what do you think about the success of everybody coming back and wanting to repeat Thursday Night Thunder, wanting to go back to Wilkesboro? They're talking about Nashville. What's this all about in your mind?
Kenny, I think it's good because I got to tell you something. I think we lost our way a little bit, right?
Yes,
So
I agree.
the poet says there's two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by.
Mm,
I think sometimes we took the road that we shouldn't have traveled by, right? And so I'm telling you, sometimes we chased the money and we didn't stay with the fan. Like people would get mad at me for saying that, but follow me. You can't just chase the money and lose the fan. Doesn't matter how rich you are. If nobody's sitting in the grandstands, it's no good, right? So you got a guy like Marcus Smith, who's the king of retro. Like Marcus Smith wants to save the rich history of the sport because he's the son of Bruton Smith, who like literally built Charlotte Motor Speedway, right?
yeah.
And so Marcus has that in his blood. He's got a little bit of dad that like, we can do this. What do you mean it's decrepit? What do you mean it's old? What do you mean it's closed? Let's reopen it. Why do you think he's looking at Nashville Fairgrounds? Kenny, you're so onto it. I think that they're wise enough to see, let's not forget our roots. And that's what makes SRX successful.
Mm.
We race short tracks in America, and we race asphalt pavement tracks, and we go to dirt tracks. You can't leave anybody out in this deal. We can't. We have to involve everybody.
I really feel like you were onto it years ago because for me, it's like, what's the difference between the IROC series and SRX? I said, oh, that's easy. SRX is going to your racetrack.
Yeah.
Going to Stadford, August 17th. I'm racing up there in Wheatland, Missouri at Lucas Oil Speedway. Oh, by the way, that's a dirt track. So it's kind of like you all started it where you went to their local racetrack, and you're just selling these places out. It's a new dynamic, but not.
Kenny, here's what it is. SRX racing appeals to my street, your street, Wall Street,
Ooh.
and Main Street.
Oh, I like
Think about it. SRX racing appeals to my street, your street, Main Street, and Wall Street.
Yeah.
You can go from, hey, we went to the Big Apple to do this deal, right? We were near Wall Street, but guess what? I got to go to Stafford, Connecticut, where there's going to be a packed crowd, and make the Root family happy with a great race on SRX. We're going to go. I mean, that's what's exciting about this.
So one thing that I really like is that when you did put the deal together for Thursday night, Thursday Night Thunder on ESPN, now you can get all the drivers because they're not racing. So
Bingo.
I see you have world class drivers, Marco Andretti and Kyle Busch and you name it. They're all running with you now because they want to, and it's exciting. How hard is it to call those drivers, get a hold of them, and just give me a look inside your phone calls? You call these drivers up, and how's it go?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Kenny, like last year when I first got here, right, they no drivers, no track sign, no drivers, right? So I got to do that, but I'm really blessed to have a Rolodex, and people actually will return my call or return my text, right?
You got a Rolodex.
Yeah, so I reached out and like, hey, are you interested in doing SR? First question I have is, are you doing it again? What racetracks you going to and all that? So I signed to 6 racetracks, boatload of drivers, went on. But here's the exciting thing about my second year. This year, Kenny, it went from 8 or 10 tracks that were interested in having SRX races to 43 tracks. And while Tony Stewart and I were on the phone, narrowing it down to 6 or 7 in case one of the 6 needed a fallback position, while I was on with Tony, a 44th racetrack called while we were on a conference call together. Wow. And I was like, wow, that's really big. But here's what's exciting. I started texting and calling drivers between December 25th and New Year's, in that window of time, to see who could I get to drive, right?
Mm.
And I am telling you, Denny Hamlin, definitely interested. Kyle Busch, definitely interested. Tell me more. Kevin Harvick, definitely interested. Tell me more. And Clint Boyer, definitely interested. Tell me more. Joseph Newgarden, definitely interested. Tell me more. Kenny, it was like, are you kidding me? I felt like I hit Powerball.
Yeah.
Because the only reason they're all available, from Joseph Newgarden to Ron Capps to Kyle Busch, is because we're on Thursday night. We're not interfering with anybody's race weekend. The neat thing about it is, when I talked to Roger Penske and Walt Zarnicki, talked to Jim France and Steve Phelps, it was, guys, we're off your weekend. We're not interference. We're just going to go to a short track and have fun. And Roger Penske's guys looked at me and said, look, a high tide lifts all ships. Every time you mention a past IndyCar driver, a current IndyCar driver, we get a free announcement. And he said, thank you so much. And Roger gave us Ernie Francis Jr., okayed him. Joseph Newgarden okayed him. Last year, Blaney okayed him. Like, he believes that this is a good thing. A high tide does indeed lift all ships. And we're not interfering with anybody running on Thursday night.
So when I look at the driver lineup, yes, you've got all the superstars, but this Paul Tracy really stands out as the villain. The fans love it. I mean, they eat it up. They boo him. He loves it. He's playing the character. But you know what? I follow Paul Tracy on Instagram. You know, it's like Rusty Wallace says.
Yeah.
It's sad to say, you have to remind people because they remember what they went to. Paul Tracy, he's another guy that I use this phrase now, has done it all. He's really good. And tell me about Paul Tracy, the dynamic of him running every race.
So Paul's he's not afraid to use up his car.
Oh boy,
He's not afraid to use up the bumper in front of him, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like, and him and I had to sit down 2 or 3 times last year. And that's the neat part about my job is, and not only get to do this, I'm doing something I love, but you know, I have school in session with Paul Tracy a little bit. And if you look, Paul Tracy was driving a number 3. I knew a guy that drove a number 3.
Never
I knew a
thought
guy that
about
was kind of rough in a number 3. And believe it or not, we talk about that. But you can sell roughness, you can sell persona if it performs. And that's the thing I kept telling Paul Tracy. You got to finish the deal. You got to finish the race. You can't just wad somebody up and then you have a broken car and you're lame the rest of the night. The art of this thing is move them out of the way and you keep moving, right? So Paul and I get along really great. Here's an interesting story. He's so psyched for this Thursday Night Thunder. The man has worked out in the mornings. He's lost 40 pounds for this year.
He looks good.
I'm not going to be falling out of the seat. You know what else you forgot on that list of drivers, by the way? I forgot to tell you, Kenny, who's coming this year. We got Kenny Wallace coming to Lucas Oil Speedway. He's gone to Missouri, and we invited his whole family because, like, look, when I went through my Rolodex, how do I miss you, Kenny? How do I miss you? I can't.
Well, I'm incredibly honored, and like I told you, we're like the Beverly Hillbillies here in Missouri. We're excited. My wife, my whole family, and
the Clampetts are coming.
Everybody's coming. Even my extent. You know what's crazy about this SRX series is I have family, extended family, and they've texted me. They didn't ask for tickets because they said, we got our tickets. We bought them online. I'm like, and I'm telling my wife, I said, I never realized how much our family really did love racing, but this whole SRX deal really lit a fire underneath my family. Thank you so much for inviting me. But I do want to go back to something you said that I really liked. The great Dale Earnhardt Sr. You said, if you move somebody, basically if you hit them and you move them and you keep moving forward.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. And you know, your man, I mean, you work for Dale Earnhardt Sr. Now that I think about it, when he hit somebody, he finished it off with a win 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. And see, you know, you and I talked offline, but we'll talk online for a second. Ross Chastain, he's got the persona. He now needs to finish it off with the performance.
I agree.
He's got a couple of wins. He doesn't have a championship yet. Stack up the wins, and the bumper gets a little more amicable, right?
Mm.
Because they know that when you use it, you're on your way to the front. But it doesn't do any good if you use it and you're out too, right? You don't want to do that, right? Doesn't matter if you're racing at Peevely or Daytona. If you take somebody out and you don't finish, shame on you. The
Boy,
art,
that is well put.
and let me tell you something. You have a brother. His name is Rusty.
Yeah.
And Rusty and Dale, you know, they put the horn to each other a lot of times. But if you notice, usually the one who did it kept going. They didn't take each other out, like, right? It wasn't a 2 for 2. And that's not critical of Ross. I mean that if I had a one-on-one with Ross, I would say, finish the deal.
Yeah.
If you tap them, just move them enough to keep going. Just move them over and keep going. So I like when they do that in SRX, by the way, because it puts the fans on they're just jumping out of the grandstands, right? And we're already sold out. But on TV, you can see the ratings spike when the excitement happens.